Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Portsmouth School Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 22nd. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our troops in harm's way. And the flag is in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, prior to the public session, we had an executive session. No votes were taken. May I have a motion to seal the executive session minutes?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote. Karen McDade.
Aye.
Tom Badney.
Aye.
Fred Ferber.
Aye.
Alan Shears.
Aye.
Carlos Payero.
Aye.
I got everybody right. Emily Copeland. Aye. Unanimous 6-0. A couple of initial remarks here about school meeting protocols. Last meeting, we had some feedback from the community that it was very difficult to hear what was being said, particularly during some of the important presentations about school reopening because of the masks and the distance from the mics. So we are adopting a new protocol that whoever is speaking should remove the mask and then put the mask back on when they are done talking in order to ensure clarity and understanding for our audience. The second question we've gotten is from the member of the community was, are we going to be able to allow members of the public at the school committee member meetings anytime soon? And the answer to that is we've had our lawyer kind of research where we stand on the governor's orders and the numbers of people. And right now, up through mid-October, the governor has basically put a limit of 15 on public meetings, obviously where you can be 6 feet apart. We're going to look into if we might be able to admit 1 or 2 members of the public on a reservation basis. But I think for the reality is until that number gets raised, we will probably be doing mostly the hybrid meeting with the public unless they have some presentation or issue to be physically at the meeting. Virtually, and then the administration and school committee being a mix of virtual and in person. So that's up for that. Are there any public comments? Steve, do you see anybody raising their hand?
No raised hands.
Okay.
Top. Check.
All right, seeing no public comments, we'll move on to the superintendent's update. Dr. Kenworthy.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First up, I have our personnel update, which is any positions that I have approved officially since our last school committee meeting. So we have 4 teaching positions that have been approved, and this pretty much completes all of our teacher hirings. There may be 1 or 2 positions that still need to be formally approved. That's good news for us. We're in really good shape there. We do have a number of support positions that we're looking to fill, but we are in good shape again when it comes to our teaching positions. So our alternative learning teacher at Portsmouth High School is going to be Joshua Anderson. Our preschool teacher, Annalise Haig. Child development, the education CTE program at Portsmouth High School, Jenna Morell. And 0.6 Spanish position at Portsmouth High School, Cynthia Barissimo. So congratulations to those individuals on joining our Portsmouth School Department staff. And then this evening, I also have some coaching appointments that I'm able to update you on. So at the last meeting we shared with school reopening on schedule, the Rhode Island Interscholastic League, with approval from the governor and the Rhode Island Department of Health, did okay soccer, cross country, tennis, and cheerleading to go forward in the fall season. And again, this is at the high school only. That as of right now, no middle school athletics for the fall. So I want to officially read the names of our coaching appointments for this fall season at Portsmouth High School. So head boys soccer coach Michael Stinton, and assistant boys soccer coaches Jeff McGurl and Evan Carnavale. Head girls soccer coach Lauren Bulk, assistant girls soccer coaches Christine Higgins and Christina Morgan. Head girls cross country coach Jeff Rose, head boys cross country coach Sean Horgan, head girls tennis coach Mark Hedden, and assistant tennis coach Casey Brown, and then head cheerleading coach Regina Dublin and assistant cheerleading coach Kerry Bai. So it's our personnel update for this evening. Just wanted a couple of quick back to school updates. We're going to have an extended presentation under teaching and learning. And so Assistant Superintendent Viveros is going to get into more detail on all of this. But again, since our last meeting, we have officially opened the school year. So that began on September 14th. And we have taken, as we have mentioned several times at these meetings and communicated out to the public, a kind of phased in gradual approach to reopening. So last week, that was a few grades, across our district and special populations. So this week, starting this week, we're phasing in more grades. So far, again, that's been going, very good at all of our buildings. So just again, kudos to staff throughout the entire district who helped us get ready, and parents and students, and kind of staying abreast of all the latest information and being ready to follow the new protocols. So with that, last week on Tuesday, September 15th, we were able to host a visit from Commissioner Infante Green. So I got an email over the weekend prior saying, if you're interested, the commissioner is going to be in the area. She has time to visit one of your schools. So we quickly pulled together a visit to Melville School. And, she was very impressed with a lot of the things she saw in place there. At Melville, they've done a really great job, at that school, but just indicative of the work that's taking place in all of our buildings to be able to welcome students back. And then also, since the last meeting, I did officially release, and it's up on our website, the results from our facilities walkthroughs that we had with the team. That is a collaborative effort from the Rhode Island Department of Education, Rhode Island Department of Health, and National Guard. And so they sent the team out a few weeks ago, walked through our facilities. They had a standard checklist that they follow. And we had, been following the guidance all summer. So, we had everything in place that they were going to be looking for, and just had to show them examples of that. I did get a follow-up letter that indicated we had no additional follow-up that we needed to do here in Portsmouth to just kind of continue with the measures that we've put in place. And so again, all of that information is up on the website for the public to be able to view. Again, we'll get into some more details around our reopening in the teaching and learning update. So the last thing that I had for this evening was I just wanted to mention and give kudos to Portsmouth High School. This past week, the U.S. News and World Report put out their annual ranking of high schools across the country. This is one of the leading publications that people turn to for this information. So Portsmouth High School, number 4 ranking in the state of Rhode Island, behind only Barrington, East Greenwich, and Classical High School. So again, that's a company that we like to keep right in that top realm of all high schools in the state. So their metrics, just so you know, I did look up because as we're aware, last spring, there was a hold put on state assessments, including even PSAT, SAT being given at the state level. But the U.S. News World Report rankings are a year behind, so they were able to still use the data that existed from a couple of years ago.
All right, thank you. Question, Mr. Ferber.
Question. Added comment that that ranking of ours, because there's roughly 23,000 public high schools in the country, that puts us in the top 3% of the country. And then a second thing, which I'm sure Tom knows, we also have one semi-finalist in the National Merit scholarship program because they just released the names, I don't know, a couple of days ago or so. And some high schools in the state don't have any, so one is not bad. I think last year we had 3.
Yeah, we'll get that ready to publicly announce.
Good, thank you, Mr. Berber. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to teaching and learning and a reopening update. Assistant Superintendent Viveros.
We're just going to bring up the presentation.
I forgot to take my mask down.
Oh, yeah, the recording device.
We're good.
All right, awesome. So good evening, everyone. I'm excited to have the opportunity to share some of our highlights for our reopening, which happened this past week in the last 2 days. The slide, great. So the first thing I wanted to do was to share once again our distance learning numbers. We continue to see our families wanting their children to attend our full in-person and hybrid models. As I mentioned at the last school committee meeting, we started with close to 25% of our families opting for distance learning. We're now down to 14%. And I truly believe that this change has been greatly influenced by the commitment of our schools. They've been sharing so many details with our families and collaborating with them. I've had personal conversations with most of our families that have changed over, and all of the conversations have been positive and supportive of the plans that we've put into place. So those numbers, and I would say that if I ran them again today, that we would be down even a little bit further. So yeah, families are coming back. Yep, one before that. Excellent. Okay, so this slide provides an overview of our phased-in model and what it looked like last week. Just to review it a little. So last week we had our kindergarten, first, 5th grade students in our vulnerable populations in since day 1. All other students for distance learning, and this allowed for our schools to work through busing and arrivals and dismissals. It also allowed for all of the distance learning students to become established within their classrooms and to build those needed connections with classmates and teachers. We anticipate that this week's going to become increasingly more challenging as we're transitioning to our entire K-6 population in full in-person by the end of the week and transitioning our 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students into the hybrid model. And then next week, we'll be running full in-person for K-6, and we'll be following the hybrid model for grades 7 through 12. Great, so I just wanted to, in the next 3 slides, I just want to review our distance learning plans in a little bit more detail with the changes that have evolved within the last month. So at our elementary level, all students are included in the class list. These students have access to Google Classroom, and the teachers are establishing schedules for including the distance learners into mini lessons for each of the content areas. We've also assigned additional teaching support at the elementary level to support our distance learning students during those small group instructions and individualized learning sessions. Now at the middle school, all students are included in the classrooms. Once again, teachers have set up the Google Classroom in all of the content areas. We've reworked our scheduling for distance learners, and teachers are engaging them throughout the class as appropriate. The size of our middle school classrooms, which are great for distancing, are becoming a little bit problematic for sound. So Steve and his department, we've been working closely at trying to resolve those issues. So we are really close to deciding on a mic and amplifier system for each of the teachers so that we can hopefully have them be able to have a little bit more of a connection with the students, the distance learners. And every day I feel like we're improving, but as we're bringing in the grades, we're going to continue to have to just troubleshoot each of those classrooms. We're getting close to that.
Yeah.
And at our high school, so the next slide, Steve. Perfect, thanks. So at the high school last week and this week, we really focused on establishing classroom community through distance learning. Similar to the middle school, all of the students are on the class list. Teachers are working with students both synchronously and asynchronously. All students, both hybrid and full distance learning, will be closely monitored and supported by the high school MTSS team. We held our first administrators Edgenuity training yesterday, and we're in the process of scheduling training for all of our 7th through 12th grade teachers. Edgenuity is being used as an additional layer of support for our teachers, and we're being very flexible with the usage. Every teacher has a different level of comfort on understanding the program. So as we work collaboratively with the teachers and have our first teacher training session, which is in October, we'll be able to connect more with them. So Edgenuity is still there. It's still a platform being used. And this next section here, this final slide, which is also going to be the video. So if you want to jump to that, the final slide is a short iMovie, just really highlighting all of the back to school amazing things that have been happening. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our families, teachers, staff, administrators. Dr. Kenworthy and I have been in the schools several times and are so impressed by the professionalism of our staff and the resilience of the students. So thank you and enjoy the iMovie. Yep.
I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care if they call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. See, I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million
And as you can see, I mean, the students, they're just doing such an amazing job. Our teachers, just every time we walk into the schools, I'm so very impressed. So only great things. Thank you.
Great. You know, and I think, you know, you have to take a moment to sort of think about what people are appreciating that before they would have been like, back to school. Now everybody's like, back to school. We're so excited.
We saw our second graders today. They started and I went into Hathaway and they were just so happy to finally be with their friends because they've been distance learning. So yeah, the kids are very happy.
Good. Well, that's a lovely video. So too. So did you send it to?
We'll share it out.
I was going to say to the commissioner, Infante Green.
Not yet. I wanted to share it tonight first. So yep, we will.
Any questions on the reopening update? I have one. We haven't had any busing issues, have we?
Well, we haven't yet because we're slowly, it was very intentional that we were bringing back, one grade at a time. I think that by the time we get to the end of this week and then the end of next week, we'll really be able to see exactly where we are.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion, please, for the approval of school committee minutes, September 8th and September 8th executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, calling the vote, Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 6-0. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So
please?
moved.
Second.
Calling the vote, Ms. McDade?
Aye.
Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Emily Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 6-0. We have 2 items on business tonight. Can I have a motion, please, to discuss legislative priorities?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we're a little early on this, but we thought we might get a jump start at it. Every year we try and have a list of things that we would like our legislative representatives to work on. And in the backup, we have our agenda from last year, which included state education aid funding formula, basically holding districts harmless for any future changes in the formula so that we don't take any more cuts. And then we also had as our second request that they amend the field trip funding legislation so that we could make it clearer on how we could fundraise and how parents could fundraise to help with a lot of the field trips and outside activities. And our third initiative was to support any efforts to prevent drug use in the community. And our fourth priority was looking at East Main Road safety. And I know the town council has taken that up in terms of looking at some of the options for study there. So I'd like to throw it open for discussion by the committee. Are there things that we would like to put on there, things that we would like to ask administration if there are needs that they feel the legislature should address? Comments, suggestions?
No, one. The DOT has poo-pooed the idea of the road diet. I still like to keep it on anyway because Medicom Ave has the same traffic statistics and it works there. And I think they're just trying to get the easy way out. So I think we should still push that.
Okay. Mr. Shears?
I'd like to echo that also. The buses are still the same. We still have the children that are going on the highway there. And it's that they said that they cannot do the road diet right now, but then there isn't any follow through as to what they're going to do other than that. And so if we don't push it, it's going to just lag and lag and lag. And I still say it's not if, it's just when there's going to be something that's a catastrophe on that road.
Okay. So road safety, road diet, Mr. Ferber?
And I'll chime in as a third vote in favor of the road diet. I thought last year it had already been decided that it was going to be tried and they would restripe the road. And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, DOT comes in and says, they don't think it should be done. And I think North Kingstown has done it and against resistance, and it's worked out. I think it's North Kingstown, and it's worked out fine.
Post Road, kind of their
Yeah.
version
Post Road.
of East Main Road, yeah.
They had a lot of resistance as well, but it's actually, from what I hear, it's actually worked out pretty well.
I do think the town council is going to be looking at this, so maybe we ought to first sort of like talk to the town council, because I think they ended up getting a report, maybe a few minutes, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm not 100% sure of the details, that they ended up getting kind of an extensive series of recommendations just a few hours before the meeting, of which the road diet was like one of many measures. But I'm hearing a lot of support for.
It's a lot of pie in the sky stuff that can take 20 years at least.
Right.
And you can go in, paint the road. If it doesn't work out, a year later, you paint it back. No big deal. It's only the cost of paint.
Okay. Other issues, other topics.
The other items are always on the list.
Yeah, I do think we had, the field trip legislation was on to get passed, but then it all got disrupted because of COVID. So I think that could still go on again as an item. I do think there, and maybe Dr. Caldwell is on remotely. I know there was some discussion about special ed and transportation and some other potential special ed issues that I don't know if you want to draft something up or if you'd want to talk about it now, but Dr. Caldwell, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so two things I'm thinking of, and I know that it's been something that this committee has discussed. It is, statewide transportation, which includes the transportation of students who attend out of district placements and high cost special ed costs for those students who exceed that threshold of our annual reporting. So I'd be happy to put together or draft some language for you to consider at your next meeting if you'd like.
I think I would, I think there's a strong consensus here that we'd appreciate your expertise on that. And that,
Sure.
I think the other thing I had down here is, was there anything about, there's federal laws which are doing some relief, but not state relief, but is that a legislative issue or is that just a regulatory issue?
With respect to special education, or was
Yeah,
that in a general?
With respect to special education under times of kind of distance learning and things like that, or was that just a temporary discussion? Or maybe I could have it totally wrong.
Yeah, so that what I can tell you with respect to distance learning while schools were closed between March and June, and as we've gone into the new school year, there has been no flexibilities to federal regulations governing special ed.
Okay. But it sounds like really the statewide transportation and the high cost special ed might be the ones to include. With the,
Yes, I would agree for the committee's consideration.
Okay. And then the transportation, road safety, the field trip funding, and was there anything else? Or is it those three? Oh, support for prevention services. That's kind of I don't know what they did on that. We might reach out to the Prevention Coalition on that too, to see if there's something that they feel strongly about. Okay. All right, so we'll draft up sort of a proposal and put it toward the committee at a future meeting for a vote, if that makes sense. That way we'll have our legislative act in order before December, which is what we need. Any other comments, suggestions? No? Okay. There's no vote on that item. That was really for discussion only. And Dr. Kenworthy, do we need a motion for discussion or we can just discuss? I think.
Yeah, whatever you would typically need. There's no approval here either, but just.
No, no, I mean,
Okay. The student handbooks.
Okay, so again, this is on for discuss only so that we could just present pursuant to our policy CHCA on handbooks for each of our schools. And we updated this policy a few years ago and just indicates that the handbooks will be presented annually to the committee. So obviously, as we've opened school, these are available to all students and families. So you have them there for your review. They are all put out electronically these days. So if you do notice anything and you want to send me comments, we can update them live. You know, there's no paper copies, particularly now with COVID, you know, of these items. So any edits we need to make are quick updates that we can do electronically.
So these are all on your backup to glance through, and they're all posted on each school's website.
That's all be on each school's website, yes. Additionally, we did add some specific, either addendums or separate, you know, items related specifically to COVID and procedures and those kinds of things.
So this is where each school kind of put their mask protocols too. I haven't had a chance.
Yeah, they're either, I looked through, some of them have things either linked in here or there's a separate
There's a
addendum
separate-
that's there
Okay.
on the web pages.
All right.
There's a separate athletic handbook, right? There's a separate,
Yes, yep.
That's posted?
Yep, that would be on the high school webpage and, you know, there's an athletic link and families are certainly directed there as seasons, you know, come up in those kinds of things.
Okay, good. Any other comments, suggestions? Well, we have a pretty short, we have a pretty short meeting tonight. So that concludes all of our business items. Our next meeting is October 13th. So with that, can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
Second,
Moved and seconded. Ms. McDade? Aye. Mr. Ferber?
Aye.
Mr. Shears?
aye.
Mr. Piero?
Aye.
Mr. Vadney?
Aye.
Ms. Copeland? Aye. Unanimous, 6-0. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thanks to everybody for all the hard work they've been doing in opening the schools up. So we're off and running.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.